Welcome to the Building One Story at a Time podcast.
We're your hosts. I'm Katie Herbine.
And I'm Stephanie LaChance.
Today we are joined by Logan from Superior Walls.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm looking forward to the
Welcome,
conversation.
Logan.
I'm a little nervous. You guys are so professional with it.
We get the big booms out with the mics on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Logan, let's start out. Why don't you give us like an introduction to who you are, maybe your background, your history with Superior Walls, and then maybe just a brief history of Superior Walls as a company as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Logan Smith. I'm the director of sales with Weaver Superior Walls. I joined Weaver, I want to say 4 years ago. I came from the plumbing and HVAC wholesale supply side. So I worked for a company called Hajoka.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So somewhat familiar with EG prior to joining Weaver, but been there for 4 years. So I lead a team of outside sales folks. We have a territory from, I'll say, Dauphin County down to like the northern Maryland area. So we sell and install, manufacture the Superior Walls for those areas. So Weaver has been in business since 1985, just specifically doing the Superior Wall product. We have a lot of folks in our facility that have been there since the beginning, which is pretty awesome and interesting.
That is awesome.
I think the relationship with EG even goes back to the 90s. If I think about it. So I'm a newcomer. I'm happy to be a part of the team, and looking forward to talking about our product with you guys today.
Yeah, I remember, I think when we went to visit the factory, you said you were there for 2 years? Or how long have you been with Superior Walls?
I've been with Superior Walls for about 3.5, 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so I am the new guy on the block. I think that's one of the things we talked about with you guys is like, one of the things we like to show people is we have such a tenure of, seasoned employees who really care about the product and care about what we do and care about our customers. So trying to learn the product and work around these great folks, it's been such a pleasure and such a fun experience so far.
And the Superior Wall product was invented in Pennsylvania, like around this area, right?
Yeah. So it was invented in New Holland. And Weaver Superior Walls had a masonry business, and the founder, the developer of the Superior Wall product came to the Weavers, with this idea, and wanted to see if there's a way that they could work together and figure it out. So from that, the relationship of Weaver Superior Walls coming to, we were Superior Walls' first license ever. So
that's cool.
Now I believe, I'm going to get it wrong, I'll have to be fact checked on this, but I want to say there's approximately like 17 nationwide at this point, with plans to grow. So cool. Superior Walls is no longer going to be like a small little thing that's only very regional. The goal is to get it out there, but all the different licenses are independently owned and operated. So I think in Pennsylvania, there are 3 manufacturers of the Superior Wall product. And, there's some in upstate New York, some in the Carolinas, Jersey, and from there. But yeah, Weaver's was the first one.
That's awesome.
So cool.
So if you buy an EGStoltzfus home, you're getting an OG Superior Wall product.
Most definitely. And that's one thing we are super proud to talk about, because we've figured out things from the very beginning and to where it is today. It's a totally different product, a totally different process, and one for the better. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but all of our basement orders are fulfilled. By Weaver.
Yeah, so all EGStoltzfus foundations are from Weaver Superior Walls. So we are extremely blessed to have you guys as trade partners and to be able to serve you guys.
Well, we are lucky that we have such a close relationship with a local company too. I mean, I love that because it's stimulating our local economy and it's, really putting back into our communities too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that we really rely on too, is we hire local people. We try to source a lot of our materials as much as we can locally. So the local aspect is something we're pretty big on as well.
I thought it was interesting too, like when we came to visit the factory, how much of it was still done by people. Like I was
Mhm.
expecting to come in and like see all of this big machinery, and it was just like guys on the ground. I mean, they had the crane that moved the concrete around, but like how much of it was still done by tradesmen?
Yeah, it is absolutely insane. I think one of the first eye-opening experiences for me when I got the tour during the interview process and after I shortly started, I said, "Do we have cranes? Like that is the coolest thing ever. Can I get certified to use that?" As you can tell, I don't have that certification, which is why I'm sitting here today talking about it and not doing it. But yeah, it is really labor intense. But the positive thing about us, and I'm sure we'll kind of get into it, is one of the benefits is we do all that stuff in a controlled environment. So those guys aren't out in the elements. They're not carrying around forms and setting forms up. So while it is still not an easy job to manufacture or install the product, compared to the alternatives, it's way nicer of an environment. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot less waste, I noticed. Like,
yeah.
And how you recycle the foam that you don't use, and like how controlled it is with the concrete that gets poured. I love that.
Yeah.
Seems.
Yeah. I mean, we like to say it's about 70% less concrete than a traditional poured foundation.
Wow.
Yep.
Which in today's day and age is like the I should say, I can say competitor, but in today, that's what we're going up against is poured in place foundations. And we use about 70% less material in the construction of our wall, which is mind blowing.
That is just amazing.
Kind of a perfect segue for us to maybe, can you give us a little bit of an understanding of what the Superior Wall Basement Foundation is? And then what are some of the key features and benefits of using that system over alternate systems?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Superior Wall system is a precast concrete foundation system that is pre-insulated and studded. So what we do is we manufacture our basement foundations in a factory in pieces. Think of it as like puzzle pieces. They come with all the bells and whistles that you would have to add after the fact if you were to pour it or block it. And we manufacture in a climate control facility. So we eliminate a lot of the environmental things that can happen on site. We eliminate a lot of waste. We eliminate a lot of time. And we bring them out to your job site. We install them in a day. So speed of installation is insane compared to the alternative. The other feature would be like how we handle moisture. So when you talk about basement, the last thing you ever want in your home is water in your basement. That's like when red alarms are going off, right? So we do that by using a very low water to cement ratio, which gives us the 5,000 PSI. Remember that book I showed you guys in the factory? We say that we're 5,000 PSI, and that's the very bottom that we're ever going to be at 28 days. We're typically higher than that in the 6,000 to 7,000 range.
Can you explain what PSI is for our listeners?
So it really talks about the capacity of that wall can withstand and like how strong it is. So the more PSI you get, the stronger the concrete is. Once you get over 4,000 PSI, it's considered impervious. So in this area, people are so familiar with Superior Walls, you don't have to waterproof the exterior because, again, once you get over 4,000 PSI, that concrete no longer wants to wick moisture from the ground, which is like in an old block basement. You go down in those, it kind of smells musty and people run dehumidifiers all the time. Well, once you get over, that'll never happen with over 4,000 PSI concrete. So that, in addition to the insulation that's already built in, just the energy efficiency that you gain over the course of time with, less heating bills and, less maintenance on the foundation and adding all those extra things after the fact that, we're proud to offer the product and we think it's a really good one.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What are some other like energy efficiency qualities of the Superior Wall?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is probably the insulation. So we have two different levels of insulation that we offer in the Superior Wall system. One's the XI product, which is like an R11.3 or R11.6, depending on how you depending on how you model that. And the other is an R21.3.
Again, can you explain what an R value rating is?
So an R value rating is, it essentially tells you the amount of heat loss that's able to travel through something. So the more R value that you have, the less heat loss you're going to have. So, I spoke about it earlier, is that our product offers you something that will bring your energy bills down. We do that by, you don't have any heat loss out of your basement. So whereas a traditional foundation that isn't insulated, which you can't even do anymore due to code, they're losing a lot of heat out of that basement space. So you're constantly having to monitor things above it to try and balance out the house. With the Superior Walls product, you don't have that issue. It's your basement is literally going to be as comfortable as your first and second floor, which is incredible.
Wow.
That is so cool.
Yeah, even more comfortable if you run hot, right?
Yeah. So.
On a day like today, you can go down there to cool off.
When I first started, I went to a job site and they had it dried in. So they had windows and the roof on and doors on, but they didn't have the mechanicals done. And the construction manager, his office was actually in the basement versus the first floor because it was a little more comfortable down there than it was because it was like wintertime. So it was more warm. It was warmer.
Oh, wow.
We try to say that if you don't condition the space, it should be ambient year round in the basement.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell us a little bit. Isn't there like a difference to when it's a walkout basement versus a non-walkout basement? Is it a different type of wall?
Yeah. So EG does something different in which you guys will use our XI Plus product on the walkout side, which we think is a great thing to do because when you have that exposed wall, that's where all the cold's going to hit the exposed wall, and that's where you're going to get a lot of your heat loss. And with the way codes work nowadays, it makes more sense for you guys to do those walkout areas in the R21 versus the R11. You guys don't have to do as much after the fact to, bolster up the insulation in that area. So,
are a lot of other builders not doing that for their walkout walls?
I would say it varies. It varies on every builder. Every builder tends to do things a little differently. I would say EG is unique in the sense that they do that R21 in the walkout area.
Across the board. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I did not know that. I knew the product changed because it looks a little different, right?
Yeah.
The Plus looks different than the regular XI.
Yeah, the Plus, the main difference is going to be the thickness of the insulation. That's what gives us the more R value. Before we had a blue. That's what we were known for, is that blue styrofoam. Everybody knew Superior Walls from the blue styrofoam. About a year ago, changes were made in the manufacturing process of that foam. So we had to come up with a different alternative. Previously, the XI Plus product always had the silver, the chrome looking walls. So that was always the case. But the XI, the 11.3 was a blue, and it was a higher R value. It was a 12.5. But in speaking with, Mike and Andy on your team and some of the other folks in Lancaster, they seem to think that dropping an R value wouldn't be the end of the world. They could do things otherwhere in other areas in the build that they could make up for that. So
awesome.
I thought you were gonna say when it was blue that you had to like custom mix something to make it blue. It's like you're known for the blue and you have to make it all blue.
What are some common misconceptions that you guys encounter, especially since you're in sales, Logan? You probably hear those a little bit more than the guys just in the factory making the walls or installing them.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And something that the folks who are into construction here will chuckle about as we talk, but that there is no footer. So that is one of the biggest things I hear day in and day out and throughout my travels is that, how does that work? You guys do not have a footer. And, traditional construction, everything, you dig a footer, you fill it with concrete, and then you build your vertical walls off of that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I try to go into an explanation of, what does a footer do? What is a footer used for in construction? It's essentially to distribute the load from above and give you a level playing surface to start your vertical walls from, start your construction from. Well, we accomplished that with 1/2-inch crushed stone. So for some people, it's mind-blowing. How can you set a house on 1/2-inch crushed stone? Well, technically, a footer is sitting on virgin soil, and so is our crushed stone. So the virgin soil is actually what is holding up the structure. We use the stone to give us a level playing field to set our walls, and the footer is integrated in our wall. So our wall thickness is 10 1/4 inches, and we use that as our footer to distribute the load down through the stone into the virgin soil. So it's one of the biggest misconceptions in the superior walls. It's one of the biggest myths that people think's, kind of different, but it's engineered. And we've been doing it since 1985, and we haven't had a house fall through the virgin soil. So
That's so interesting. Yeah. I'm just looking if I was going to try to find the basement detail here. I'm curious if the slab itself still has a footer.
the slab itself does not still have a footer. So your slab in forever has sat on on crushed stone, not necessarily 1/2 inch. That's what we set on. And we specify 1/2 inch because our installation team has to go through the perimeter of that structure and get it level. While screeding 1/2 inch is a lot easier than screeding like 3/4 inch stone or bigger. So one of the reasons why we specify 1/2 inch, but yeah, your slab sits directly on crushed stone as well.
Wow. So interesting. I love the science part of building.
Yeah. I'm not the most scientific guy, but I do know how some of this stuff ties into the superior wall product. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. Can you walk us through how the foundation walls are installed? Like, what does install day look like?
Yeah, install day. Interesting you asked that because prior to coming here, I helped our team install a system. So it's relatively simple depending on the amount of corners and all that that's going on in the house. We're going to come out and we are going to ask that the stone be within 1 inch of level throughout that basement. So our team's going to come out. We're going to ask that stone be within 1 inch of level. We also ask that the property is surveyed because we don't want to take the liberty of putting the house somewhere it's not supposed to be. You guys know with setbacks in neighborhoods, it is very precise. So we ask it to be surveyed. Our guys will they'll go around with a tamper and compact the stone. Once the stone's compact, we're gonna lay out the basement. Once the basement's laid out, the guys are then going to crane in the panels, and they're gonna secure them at the top and bottom of the wall with 1/2 inch steel bolts, and they're going to seal each seam with 3 beads of sealant. So we use a proprietary urethane sealant, which if you get it on your clothing or your hands, it's never coming off, or it's going to take a long time for it to come off your hands. But the clothing, it'll never come off. And yeah, it's pretty much just putting the puzzle pieces together after that and closing the box, making sure everything's square, plumb, and level. So those guys are checking diagonals and checking for levelness throughout the whole time. So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is square, plumb, and level when we leave that job site.
During my first Superior Wall factory tour, I had asked about the seams because it was something I had never seen before about the sealant that's used, the urethane. And the answer I was given was that stuff's probably stronger than the walls themselves.
Yeah. So I can speak into that a little bit. When I started, I would get phone calls all the time of interested folks about the Superior Wall product. And one of the things, was, is it really just caulked together? Essentially, kind of yes and no. There's bolts, involved as well. But yeah, the sealant is a huge factor. I got it time and time again. So I went to my boss, Doug, and I asked him. I was like, "Can you tell me about this sealant? Like, is this the real deal. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, we actually did a test one time where they took panels and glued the panels together to see, what would fail, the seam or the panel. Well, the panel actually failed before the seam.
Wow.
So another interesting thing to, continue on into that is if we ever have to go back and uninstall a panel, they actually have to saw cut it. There's no just pulling it apart. They actually have to saw cut those joints where the sealing is.
Wow. Sounds like an infomercial.
It is. Maybe I should sell the sealant. I don't know.
Logan with like a saw.
Yeah. No, definitely don't want that. Definitely don't want that. Might be a little crooked.
Can you share any notable success stories or case studies where superior wall basements have made a significant difference in a construction project?
I would say there's a bunch of different ways that I could travel down that. I would say one of the things is the success stories that I like to see and hear is when you hear somebody who comes back and they say, I purchased Superior Walls 20 years ago, and I couldn't be happier that we made that decision, because at that point in time, EG might have been using it and maybe a couple other builders, but for the most part, it was not normal to use Superior Walls. And to hear, their stories about it, we do so many different projects around that we're so proud of in partnership with EG and others that I think one of the things that we take seriously at Weaver is how we view the end user, and how important the integrity of our system is to that family that's going to live on that house. We think about the families that are going to live with Superior Walls almost with every decision we make, because at the end of the day, they're the most important people out there, the ones that are choosing to build with EGStoltzfus and choosing Superior Walls. So just hearing those sentiments and the feedback we hear from folks like that is probably the most rewarding things that I can think of and, can share in the success of. So.
Wow. Wonderful.
I like that. It's nice to know too, like, people that finish their basements or have in-law quarters in their basement, that like they're getting a product that is going to serve their family so well and be comfortable for those in-laws that are maybe in shifting life positions and stuff like that. Like, it's almost inspiring.
Yeah. Shame on me for not saying it to this point, but that is one of the biggest features outside of all the fancy stuff that I talked about earlier is you can put drywall directly on the Superior Wall system. So finishing it doesn't require a contractor to come in with loads of lumber and frame your walls up and spend a bunch of time doing that. The ability to finish that space quickly and easily is, unmatched.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I know they're pre-drilled for wires up and down. So that's another really big benefit to having those superior walls.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the chase tubes for your electrical. So you don't have to, stud any walls out. Occasionally you still will, depending on the drainage layout of the, all the stuff coming down from the first floor. But for the most part, yeah, you can hang your drywall right on the Superior Wall.
You guys have thought of everything.
Yeah.
Somebody did. I sure did.
There you go.
Well, thank you so much, Logan, for joining us. Is there anything else you want to add about Superior Walls or anything, maybe like a listener out there who's considering maybe a custom build on their own lot or like a remodel renovation project that would require a basement? Anything that you'd want to add for those listeners for them to be aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me in. This was a pleasure. It was awesome to get to meet you guys last week at the plant tour and kind of show you the behind the scenes. I would say one of the things, if somebody's considering, on your home lot and maybe going with a poured wall versus Superior Wall, is you can't really upgrade your foundation. Nope. Right. You can't like you can a countertop or a new faucet and light fixtures. Once your foundation's in, for the most part, that is what you got. So I always strive to explain to people is that you can't change it. So why not look at an alternative that has everything in one? It's an all-in-one package. Your build is going to be done faster. I mean, at least by a week, just from what we take out. So why not start your build with the best product possible? And if there's corners that need to be cut or anything of that nature, maybe you don't need the tier 4 faucets. You can live with a tier 3, but with your foundation, you can't change that after the fact. So
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Logan, for joining us. We are looking for listener questions, so we are going to leave a link in the show notes. Go ahead and follow that link and drop us a couple questions you'd like us to answer here on the podcast.
And if you want to see a little bit of the Superior Wall factory, we posted a reel on our Instagram of our tour that we got to take last week. That was a really fun tour.
I did see that. You guys did I wish I had those skills to do like mashups like that. Looks fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, it was fun. All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Logan. And thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.